What is everybody? Roll Tide. Welcome to Cover Crimson. We got a lot to talk about today as we get closer and closer to Alabama and Florida State down in Tallahassee, including one of Bama's best offensive linemen not being available for the Crimson Tide. What is the offensive line going to look like? Hey, a Jaylen Mbakwe sighting, and it's not what you think. It's him on the scout team. We'll talk about that. Kalen DeBoer and all the coaches spoke to the media. We'll get into that. All this coming up right on Cover Crimson. And we are brought to you guys by Pearl River Resort, Philadelphia, Mississippi. The Azaleas, the Oaks, two amazing golf courses at Dancing Rabbit Golf Course, which is at Pearl River Resort in Philadelphia, hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 and change from Birmingham. And I'll tell you, it's a great time of year. You're getting into golf season now. It's cooling down, and would be a great weekend is go there on a Friday, do a little golf, go to Tuscaloosa for the game on Saturday, and then swing back. Philip M. Steakhouse, slots, table games at Silver Star and Gold Moon Casino, all that. All right, we're going to talk about Bama football right here. Roll Tide. All right, Roll Tide, guys. There's Clint Lamb. I'm Mick Gillispie. We heard from the coaches yesterday, and then all of a sudden you start to kind of deconstruct everything. And right off the bat, we weren't expecting this. Jaeden Roberts going to be out for the Florida State game. I don't feel like we really got a definitive reason why, other than he said he's not healthy. And it looks like you got Gino Vandermark kind of being that guy that slides into that spot.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. A lot of people were hoping that he would be back for the game. Wouldn't have had a whole lot of practice time, though, so don't know how available he would have been regardless, but pretty much being confirmed as being out unless something drastic changes, which I definitely don't foresee. It's a loss for Alabama, no doubt. I will give the offensive line a lot of credit, though, because I was thinking about it. How often do you lose a multi-year starter like Jaeden Roberts, who has played not only a lot of football, but a lot of football for Alabama, and yet you've still got 4 starters who got at least 2 starts for Alabama last year. And then you've got another guy in Cam Dewberry who has plenty of SEC experience. Between Gino Vandermark and Wilkin Formby, one played close to 300 snaps. The other played north of 400 snaps, which when you talk about Jaeden Roberts, he played just over 500 last year. So the split was fairly even. And then you've got multi-year starters like Caden Proctor. You've got a guy who has started multiple years under, Kalen DeBoer and Parker Brailsford. So not many programs or teams could lose a player like Jaeden Roberts and still have the continuity that I think Alabama's going to have with its offensive line. That's really encouraging. Obviously, it's not that they don't feel good about some of the other guys, but I would say right now, probably first guy off the bench is going to be, I guess, Olas Alinen would probably be the first guy. Now, granted, you might see one of the freshman offensive linemen if a tackle gets hurt, but Olas has been seeing snaps at pretty much all 4, the 2 guard spots, the 2 tackle spots. So if something happens at center, you move Gino Vandermark over, you probably slot in Olas Alinen, and there you go. You keep going. If something happens with a tackle, you might see Olas as well. So they still have a guy who can kind of be, doesn't have much experience, on-field experience, but he's been with the program for a couple of years. That's got to make you feel pretty good. But it's an unfortunate loss. And when you start talking about Jaeden Roberts and Jam Miller, Alabama has been pretty fortunate as far as the injury stuff, at least for the long term, but it is, you can't afford 2 more many of these before it really starts to mount or stack up.
Yeah, right. You lose Jam Miller, you're starting running back. Now you're losing one of the big nasties up front, one of the guys that you figured would be a mainstay on this offensive line. But you've talked about it a lot during this offseason, is that Alabama has waves of guys up there that can help out in that spot. And you just kind of named how you feel like this rotation will go. Should we be concerned?
I don't think you should be concerned. This is what the offensive line, this has pretty much been the lineup for most of fall camp. I mean, obviously there was some competition going on between Jaeden Roberts and Gina Vandermark. Vandermark was also in the early stages of fall camp. He was rotating in with Cam Dewberry. But this has kind of been the offensive line for a while. This isn't like this happened this week. It's certainly not as catastrophic. I say pretty much catastrophic as your starting left tackle going down in pregame warmups, where it's like, okay, let's scramble. Now we were planning to platoon Elijah Pritchett and Wilkin Formby at right tackle, but instead we're going to have to move Pritchett over to left. It doesn't matter how poorly or not poorly either one of these two tackles plays. It got to a point against USF where Tyler Booker had to kick out to left tackle. So, it's nothing like that. But it's a hostile environment. You want as many veteran leaders, guys who have seen it and done it, as you can possibly get. But as far as the starting offensive line, you still have a good combination of experience, whether it be at Alabama or just within the SEC in general. And, when you look at like Florida State's defensive line, Darrell Jackson is a monster, 6'5", 6'6", 330 plus pounds. I mean, he's a big dude. I think closer to 340 actually. And he's pretty athletic, great run stopper, still developing as maybe becoming more of a 3-down presence for Florida State. But outside of him, I think they might have one other defensive lineman who is north of 300 pounds. So not saying you're going to be able to push these guys around necessarily, but in a 3-3-5 defense that Tony White's going to want to run, having only one or two guys that are 300 pounds or more, that should be able to present Alabama's offense with some opportunities. Hopefully they'll be able to establish the run game and still play off of that. But at the end of the day, if you could have Roberts available, you would 1,000% take it.
Right. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I just, it's like a lot of this going on now. Does Florida State having any of these issues? It's like, now now we're down our top running back. Now we're down maybe our third best offensive lineman, but someone that we really thought was going to be part of the strength of this team. And I still feel like Alabama, I keep hearing that Alabama's really good, but they're going to have to block. And some of these other guys, it's what you show up for. If you're Gino Vandermark, you transferred here from Wisconsin to play football. Now you're in, right?
I mean, that's, keeping Vandermark was crucial. A lot of fans, I know that for whatever reason, they haven't been, super high on him. I don't think he's some great NFL talent. But what I will say is from what we've heard, the offensive line as a unit has worked really well. And I think that Gino Vandermark is a really intelligent player, great communicator. That's why he has the ability to kind of slide inside the center. And he's a steady, reliable guy. Are there going to be times where he's just going to be going against a guy that's just more talented than him and he's going to get beat? Absolutely. But I think for the most part, like you can survive, not just survive, but thrive as a unit with him in the lineup. I'm telling you, I think he's a more than good enough player. I don't think he's a world beater. I don't think Cam Dewberry is necessarily a world beater, but I think he's going to be an effective people mover. And, I think playing between Parker Brailsford and Caden Proctor, that should make for a pretty good left side. Obviously, the bigger question mark, in my opinion, right now is the right side because we don't fully know what to expect from Wilkin Formby, even though we've heard great things about him. Right. But, having Gino Vandermark playing next to him, that's going to be something that is at least something to monitor. But I will say when you lose a starting offensive lineman or at least a guy who is in the competition to start along your offensive line, the fact that you are still able to maintain what Alabama's going to have with its offensive line speaks volumes as far as what Kalen DeBoer and the staff have done as far as accumulating a little bit of depth to kind of withhold or withstand some of these problems.
We'll find out. I mean, this is some big news, right? And we don't know if when he's coming back in the foreseeable future. So hopefully it's not long, and Bama's able to withstand Florida State with this offensive line that just I don't know if it got worse, but obviously without one of their best pieces. Hey guys, I want to tell you this though. Talking about best piece, you're going to want to go somewhere on vacation that is really nice, right? I mean, I think that's easy to say. And that's Residence Inn by Marriott Ocean City out there in Maryland, right there on the shore. It's beautiful out there. Sunsets, crab cakes, crab imperial, Maryland crab soup. I could sit here and tell you guys about the crabs. I could tell you about the boardwalk and Secrets Bar and the green turtle and all the really fun stuff at Ocean City by Residence by Inn at Ocean City, Maryland. But go check it out for yourself. Tell Keith we said hi. I think he'd love to see you, and you'd have a great time out there. It really is an awesome place. Back to back coastal style hotel of the year. Jaylen Mbakwe, talking about back, he is making some headlines finally, and it's that he's pretending to be on the scout team, Thomas Castellanos. So here you go.
Yeah, I thought this was really interesting. It makes sense as soon as Deontay Lawson said it. So that pretty much Deontay Lawson was asked who is emulating Tommy Castellanos in practice, because we know he's been one of the better running quarterbacks in college football the last couple of years. Not saying he's necessarily been one of the better dual threat quarterbacks, but as far as straining defenses with his legs, he has been, pretty effective. Over 1,300 yards and 14 touchdowns in 2 years for Boston College. Ran for 120 yards and another touchdown for UCF the year before, and that was only on 61 snaps. Didn't play a whole lot, but still put up some rushing production. And so, he can be a problem. Who can emulate that type of player? Well, I mean, you got a guy who is one of the best athletes on the team in Jaylen Mbakwe. He played quarterback in high school, played a lot of different things in high school, but having that type of presence, that can be really beneficial for your defense. And, I thought it was an interesting comment. And obviously when Deontay Lawson, he brought up Jaylen Mbakwe and said that he was the one doing it and kind of praised him for the energy he was bringing and kind of, talking a little bit of trash, getting the guys going and all those things. That's obviously encouraging. But, Ryan Williams also confirmed it. And there was a couple of things that I think is worth talking about when it comes to this topic. Number one, we'll go ahead and start with what Ryan Williams said, because he used Mbakwe to show that this team is very selfless. It's filled with people who are willing to put the team first over individual, success, I guess you would say, or acknowledgement. And he said he's very proud of the guys on the team for doing that. And that kind of reinforces everything that we've heard. I mean, this was a guy who is rotating and playing quite a bit last year and was trending at corner, made the switch to wide receiver. We weren't sure if he was going to be a part of the rotation or not, but at the bare minimum, he was probably going to see some action on special teams, and to go from what he was last year to essentially what some might view as scout team, that could be kind of a devastating blow as far as the ego. Instead, Mbakwe's doing all the right things. He knows he can help the defense. He goes over there. He puts his team first. He's trying to give the best Castellanos look that he possibly can. And, from a throwing standpoint, he doesn't play the position on the college level and hadn't for the last several years like Castellanos. So is he going to be able to replicate exactly what he provides as far as throwing? No, but I think he can do enough where if you focus too much on the legs, he can make you pay for it with his arm. But it's more so like you can get other scout team quarterbacks to emulate the throwing ability of a Castellanos. But can you get somebody that can also emulate the rushing side of it and, extending plays and, eluding pressure and doing all that? That I just don't think Alabama could have much of a better option as far as that's concerned. So that's certainly encouraging. But a lot of people will look at that and they'll say, well, what does that mean as far as his preparations at wide receiver? Does that mean he's not going to be part of the rotation when Alabama plays Florida State? Well, I think right now, the way that it's set up, Alabama not only has the starters at the top that we've talked about 1,000 times, Ryan Williams, Isaiah Horton, and Jeremy Bernard, but you've got another wave of guys, Jalen Hell, Cole Adams, potentially Lyseer Brooks, maybe a Derek Meadows, where even if you had an injury or two, you could maintain guys who could continue to contribute at receiver where you wouldn't have to turn to Jaylen Mbakwe. Now he's a massive part of what you're trying to do on offense, but yet he spent a majority of the week not spending all of his time on the scout team, but contributing a lot to that where, you're like, man, I wish we would have gotten him more reps at wide receiver and kind of had him more involved in the game plan. you know what, they can work kind of into their depth a little bit, and you don't have to be concerned about that. I definitely expect him to make an impact on special teams. Maybe you still will see him as far as some manufactured touches, maybe some spot plays here or there on offense. But I do think that this, at the very least, signals that he's probably not going to be one of the top 4 or 5 guys, which was kind of already expected.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I mean, I'm not surprised, but this is actually a great way of a guy that played quarterback at Clay Chalkville, state champion, excellent athlete, to learn more football, right? I mean, to kind of help the team out in a way. And, and hopefully by the end of the season, he's a guy that's contributing on the field and not behind the scenes, but still, these are important, reps and looks that this team's going to get as they head to Florida State to play the Seminoles on Saturday. Guys, we want you to look good. We want you to rep the right way. Crimson 20, that's your Roback.com code, 20% off your Roback gear at Crimson20 at Roback.com. Yeah, every email address gets you hooked up, whether it's the hoodies or the polos. Man, some really great clothes there. I'm actually wearing mine right now, by the way, with a little dog on it. Anyway, you guys take advantage of it at Crimson 20, Cover Crimson. We appreciate you so much for checking out Roback and supporting our show. And it does support our show every time you buy a shirt through them. See, Clint, there he is right there.
Beautiful.
Look, Kalen DeBoer spoke to the media, and a couple things that I listened to the entire interview twice, kind of just trying to read through what he was saying on different stuff. But he says he's comfortable with Lee, and that's good, a good sign.
Yeah, that was really encouraging, in my opinion. And now, granted, it's not shocking. Even a guy like Kane Womack, he already said that Dijon Lee, he viewed him as a starter, and we know he's going to be a part of, Alabama's plans this weekend against Florida State. What I love about what Kalen DeBoer said is just he feels very comfortable. He's the same guy. Even when he screws up, there's this veteran presence about him where he's all about not making the same mistake twice. He's all about learning from his mistakes, and just he continues to get better each and every day. And some guys just have that it factor where the moment's not too big for them. They understand that they're growing and they're learning, and they don't let mental mistakes affect what they're trying to do moving forward. It's, hey, I screwed up, put my head down, fix it, don't do it again. And that's the type of player that you want, especially when it's a guy who's 6'4", 202 pounds, battles at the catch point, physical, long. I mean, just everything that this guy provides. He is an extremely talented guy who has a winning mentality, and that's why I think he's positioned himself to be such a major contributor in this Alabama secondary, despite the fact that they already are pretty loaded up in the secondary. They don't have to have him. They would be just fine without him, but he is going to help this room, and he's going to elevate this room to a completely different level. And, think about it from just week one. Deuce Robinson for Florida State, the USC transfer, 6'6", 223 pounds, has played, roughly about 500 snaps in his career, had about a handful of starts, so he's got some experience. But when you talk about having a guy who can match that height, weight, speed, that athletic profile, I'm not saying Damani Jackson can't do it. I'm not saying Xavier Brown can't do it, but when you've got a 6'4", 202-pound corner who can match the athleticism, I mean, you've kind of got a unicorn defender who can really aid or help that. So I don't know if Dijon Lee will specifically be matching up against Deuce Robinson. I don't know what Florida State plans to do with him, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if you did see that matchup happening some, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if Dijon Lee ended up having some success. But this is the different body types, which they're all big guys. It's not like you have the really undersized, short, corner or whatever. But at the same time, having somebody like this, whether it be, maybe it's a tight end in the future, as he gets more comfortable, that's just really a Kyle Pitts type, where it's like maybe you actually move him around to help out in that regard too. I mean, you can end up having a very intriguing chess piece for your defense with a guy like Dijon Lee. I'm as excited to see him as I am anybody in this Alabama defense.
Yeah, me too. I mean, 5-star, looks the part. He's been one of those guys we keep hearing about during camp. So if he breaks out and has some big plays, I don't think anybody would be surprised by that. And hopefully that's the case because we feel really good about the secondary. Now, Ryan Grubb spoke about a lot of different things too. And this is the fun time of year. You get the Monday press conferences and then they lay out the game. I mean, it's game week, right? And Ryan Grubb talked about Ty Simpson and his advice to Ty Simpson. What does Ty need to do to have success? It's the same thing that Kalen DeBoer said last year up to Jalen Milroe. Just go play ball. Just go out and do your thing. And you got to relax and play the game. And I feel like with this staff, when they're having success, it's because the players just feel comfortable enough to go out there and do what they know how to do. And they're not thinking a whole lot. They're just reacting and playing.
Yeah. And I mean, so what Grubb said was, when asked what he was expecting from Ty or wanted to see from Ty in his first career start, he said, just play ball. I think that Ty plays his best when he stays calm and collected, just like any quarterback. I think as long as he stays within himself and doesn't try to make each play bigger than it is, he'll be just fine. And this is where, Ty's experience, not on-field experience, but experience on the college level and in Alabama's program, I think is going to benefit him the most. Because one of the most encouraging things that I heard about Ty Simpson, and we've talked about this, but this just kind of, speaking specifically about this, don't try to make each play bigger than it is. One of the things that I heard about him from that second scrimmage, just over a week ago, I guess, was he didn't do that. The opportunities weren't available downfield. Alabama was doing some things to compensate and limit the explosive plays. Did Ty Simpson try to force things? No. He said, okay, well, I'll take what the defense gives me. It's one of the things that I helped win him, that helped win him the job, the starting quarterback job, and he's continued to build off of that. So, I'm not saying that when things go live, those lights are bright, not saying he can't, that I'm guaranteeing that he'll approach it the same way. But what I will say is based off of the limited that we know, he has had that type of mentality. But I'll also say he hadn't always had that mentality. He used to let things get to him. When he would make a mistake, he would let it linger. That was a big problem early in his career. I think him being given the time to sit, learn, develop, but also work on that and kind of being able to let things go a little bit, I think is for a first career start. I know it's a hostile environment. There's going to be pressure. He's going to be expected to make some plays. I think they have enough around him where the entire game won't be on his shoulders, but you got to go out there and make some plays. There's no doubt about it. But, I think that he is as prepared as he possibly could be for this moment. And I think that's going to end up paying dividends on Saturday against Florida State.
I hope that for Alabama, that they don't fall behind and all of a sudden, like they're under pressure to have to do a whole lot. Right. I mean, because now you're without Jam. Now you're without Roberts. Roberts played injured a lot last year. And, I was wondering if he was going to win the job. And then you heard it like, hey, he was doing great. And then now all of a sudden he's out. There was no doubt after the Iron Bowl that Jam Miller was the future, right? So you don't have him. So if I'm Florida State, I'm thinking, look, if we can get a couple touchdowns on these guys early, it's going to cause some real pressure on the road in a hostile environment. For Alabama, I think it's so important to me that they establish the run just so that they're not putting Ty under a lot of pressure here.
I think you can say establish the run. That would certainly help. I think, having early success, defense coming out there and getting you a stop. If Alabama's defense is out there first, go get your quarterback a stop. Let him know that you're going to have his back all day with that, and you're not going to put him in situations where Florida State's scoring points and he has to respond, and now the pressure starts to mount. That would certainly help. Guys are going to have to make some plays. They're probably going to make things, I wouldn't say super easy for him, but you've got guys that can create yardage after the catch. You've got to have a quarterback that can get him the football in a position to do that. But assuming that Ty is able to get the football out quickly, which I would fully expect that to be a part of things early, especially with how Tony White and that defense likes to play, get the football to your playmakers, let them break a tackle, make a guy miss, turn some, short gains into some medium gains or maybe some longer gains, and then start to build his confidence that way. I also wouldn't be shocked based off of this defense, wouldn't be completely shocked if, to kind of make a statement, if they even try to take a shot early. Now, granted, that can get away from you. It's a risky move. If it hits, Ty's confidence is going to be soaring, and I think that pretty much from the jump, he's going to kind of have that it factor, and he'll be rolling. If it doesn't, when you finally go out there and things go live, you don't want to test his resolve that early, right? Where he goes out there and immediately throws a pick. Now, hey, you're the starting quarterback. Oh, no, everybody's panicking. Now you've got to sit there and wash it and move on to the next thing. So I don't know what the risk, to what degree will the risk be involved? But I know that this guy can win in a variety of ways. This offense can win in a variety of ways, and they've got to win as a team. So just go out there, and if you're everybody else, do whatever you can to say, let's make this guy comfortable in this football game. Let's let him get his feet wet a little bit, get his confidence going, because if we do that, we've got everything else we need to have a very successful game and a very successful season. So hopefully they're able to execute.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it's some bad news going into this game, but a lot of good news too. Just that you feel like everything you're hearing out of practice is that this team's humming, right? And maybe with that competition they've had at offensive line, that they're not that worried about this. I think they wanted to get Geno in anyway. And he played a lot last year. I mean, maybe a drive here, drive there, but he's constantly been in the mix. And I think this is one of the things I like the most about Coach DeBoer is that he gets guys into the games, right? If they practice hard, he finds a way to get them in and be involved in this. And so now, it's not like he's going in and he hasn't ever played before. I mean, he's played parts of a lot of games.
I mean, and that's the benefit, man. Like that's why you make these types of moves like Alabama did last year. He gave Alabama, what did they need? They needed a depth option who had some versatility, that had played some Division I Power 4 football. They went out and they got that player. A whole lot of people kind of were like, he's a dude, including myself. Like, I'm like, hey, this is a fine option. Definitely think he helps the depth, but I didn't think he was going to be what he turned out to be even last year. I thought he was a lot more effective. Was he perfect? No, not by any means, but I thought he was good, and I thought he was steady and reliable, and that's exactly what you needed him to be. And now that he's, comfortable in this offense, he's comfortable playing, next to Parker Brailsford. He's played both, next to Wilkin Formby. He's played next to Caden Proctor. He has the ability to slide inside the center. Just like I said, very savvy, smart player that can do a lot of different things for you. If you didn't have him, I'm not saying Olas would play poorly. In fact, I don't even know who would start. But I will say I'd feel a lot more uneasy, because it was kind of like when Alabama's top two guards a couple of years ago got injured, going on the road to play Texas A&M, who obviously had one of the best defensive fronts in college football, a lot of talent. And you had Jaeden Roberts getting his first career start. And it's like, I honestly just don't know what to expect. But you would fully expect that to be a liability, a problem position in this football game. And Jaeden Roberts held up extremely well, and so you don't always know, but it would just be the unknown of it. But having the comfort as a fan of knowing that you still got two veteran, reliable guards, you still got guys across the board, can't work into that depth too much more at this point. But, I think Alabama will be fine and should have a lot of success offensively. And then hopefully sooner rather than later, a guy like Jaeden Roberts can get back.
All right. Yeah. I'm excited about football, disappointed about the injuries, but we'll be talking about it here on the channel. Guys, also, if you can't get to YouTube, don't forget we've got Cover Crimson and our podcast network, Apple, Spotify, all those places have what we talk about on a daily basis on there. So it's whether it's Clint and Jimmy, Jake Coker and Elephant in the Room, all that stuff available at Cover Crimson Podcast Network, and you guys can just download it there. And we want you to download it so that you're constantly getting it, right? So thank you for being part of the show today. And again, we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort over in Philadelphia. How do you feel about the season? You can go over there and bet on Alabama at the sports book, the Timeout Sports Lounge. It's a Vegas-style sports book, and you don't have to go that far. Hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 and change from Birmingham to get over there to Pearl River Resort and have that experience. But table games and slots, they got Geyser Falls is shutting down, but had a great season over there at the water park. Got some concerts coming up, including Tracy Lawrence in November. They've got bands that play on the weekends, and it's really a fun place. There's a skywalk that goes between the Silver Star and Golden Moon Casino, but we appreciate them. Clint, any final thoughts?
Nope. Just looking forward to the reviews, the previews, I guess you would say, coming up tomorrow and Thursday. Should make for some great conversations, and I'm definitely looking forward to it.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging with us. Like, subscribe, thumbs up, get in the comments section. We are one day closer to football. Roll Tide, everybody.